Well, I guess since it's about 2 minutes after the hour, let's just go ahead and get started. There will be people straggling in as usual. So I guess welcome everyone to this edition of the Louisville Small Business Summit. A group of us, Jeff Walston, Brian Reed, Stuart Alexander, and various other people. We started the group later last year to essentially create a resource for small business owners really across the country since we've been since COVID has taken place. We've been able to reach out to people from across the nation to come share ideas that are beneficial to small business owners. And so we're really happy today to be able to address a topic that I know is extremely pertinent, in particular in an environment where we've been kind of limited in our marketing ability. So I think we're going to be, we're going to limit that. So I think what we're going to go ahead and do is kind of introduce a few of our speakers. So Allison Werder from Main Street Marketing, she's going to be talking a little bit about paid advertising and how you can utilize that in your business. Then we'll have Brittany Murphy speak, who's from One Thing Marketing, local here in Louisville. Who's going to talk a little bit about SEO and website. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with Robert Johnstone from Wayne Media Group. And he's going to talk about podcasting and how really starting a podcast can be beneficial for your business. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is actually we're going to move on to Brittany Murphy, who's going to be talking about SEO and website. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say as well. And do you need to share your screen as well, Brittany?
I do not. So I promise me I'll try to make SEO as sexy as possible without any visuals to go with it. So just use your imagination, people. That's all I ask. Well, thank you for the introduction, Raphael. So I'm Murphy. I'm the marketing director at One Thing Marketing. And what we mainly focus on is helping a lot of local businesses get more of their local clients to find them. So the main objectives to do that is with a really great website, but not just a great website that actually shows up when people are trying to type in what you do, your products and your services. So COVID has definitely made all of the old things we've used to do so much harder. You know, there's no more door-to-door knocking salespeople that we could hire to easily kind of go through. It's changed a little bit, but, you know, these were kind of things that we lost that for a bit. You know, we lost the ability to have any type of large events, even the events Allison were talking about. We kind of lost this during that time. We kind of lost that ability to host the events to share our brand and kind of some different things that we're all about. And the other aspect of it is less people were out driving, which was great if you were one of the ones that got to drive, no traffic. But for the majority of us that work in advertising, if anybody kind of, you know, obviously with the less traffic sweep, we had less time to run radio ads and do billboard ads. So what we kind of helped focus people on, and really what helped get a lot of people through 2020, was really focusing more on SEO. So for those who don't know what SEO is, it just stands for search engine optimization. And so SEO is really just kind of where your potential clients are right now. You know, they're looking straight at their phones and they're trying to see what restaurants open, what hours do people have, and maybe what contractors open at what times to fix any of their home problems. Because I'm sure if you're like me, staying home for so long, your honey to-do list got imaginably way too long. You know, so I know a lot of husbands out there hate that. And so that's kind of where, in a sense, what we do is help people be right in front of the moment when those people are searching for them. And that's really what SEO does at the end of the day, is when someone's going straight to Google and typing in HVAC repair and they see these companies pop up, what we do is what helps those companies pop into those areas. So during this time I will kind of go over some fundamental things. And also I do want to give you a lot of tips and tricks of things to do on your own. Or if you are paying anybody for marketing SEO services, then just some kind of things to look into and make sure you're asking them to do this for you. That's the biggest thing I want to say as much as today is I make my role all about education and making sure you understand at the end of the day as a business owner what you're paying for. So whether these things are something you might do yourself, they are things that you could obviously send to your marketer person and kind of making sure they're looking at these things as well. So the biggest thing I want to just kind of talk about is what actually is SEO, kind of how does it work? So what SEO is basically when you show how relevant your website is to Google. And so what I mean by relevant is you send enough clues off of your website that tells Google, what do you do and what do you want to show up for? So for example, my HVAC contractor, well, he does air conditioning repair, furnace repair, replacements. They do all of these things of nature. So if their website doesn't send enough clues to Google of all the different types of services within HVAC that they repair or replace, then Google's not going to rank them very high because they're not sending enough clues that they should be seen as an authority in the industry. So the biggest thing as far as how it works is you actually have that physical content on your site. And so what I mean by that is your website shares that information that Google can match back and say, okay, I understand that you have these articles about your furnace repair. People are typing this in. I see the match. In the basis of things, that's really how it works out online. So really, as far as you can't make your website rank without doing SEO. And it's all about just creating the right content and add to the site to show Google you're actually a resource. So at the end of the day, I always tell everybody, you should have more funnels of marketing than just one. SEO is a great thing, but I love when we have clients who also do a little bit of other things, just kind of make sure they bring some things in. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of marketing methods they can do. And mainly a lot of the traditional ones that we could talk about are where no one right now has the right tracking abilities with it. And you can track all these things. Almost everything you do nowadays, you can track. And so, SEO is the only thing you can kind of do that really sticks and stays outside of the traditional method. So making sure you're tracking that is kind of a good option to kind of go and get that ready. So we all kind of understand, hopefully, a little bit what SEO is. So what I kind of want to talk about now is what can you put on your website to get found more online? So the biggest answer to this is all of your service or products that you offer need to have their own page on your website. So for instance, let's go back to my HVAC contractor. He needs to have a cooling type of page. He needs a heating page. He also does repair and replacements for both. So he needs an air repair page, an air replacement, a heating replacement, and a heating repair, and everything he does. So what I just kind of ask everybody is write down what you do, what you provide, and go back to your website. So you can break down what you do as much as possible. I'm sure anybody who's not in the marketing world could just say, that Allison does network marketing. I just do Google marketing. And oh my gosh, Robert, he just kind of does podcasts. That's really segmenting us into a small box. So even with what we do, we have to break down what we do into different niches and services, just like you would do. So that's really kind of in the day, you need to make sure that you have all these pages set up for what you do. So for instance, let's just say you have one of these pages. The biggest thing I suggest everybody do is very simple. Copy, select. How many words do you have on this page about that service? The sweet spot, you honestly need more than 1,000 words, hands down at the end of the day. And honestly, the more words you can put on one of these pages, the better. So a quick example of this would be in the old days when you hired a marketing company to do SEO, they would write 100 blog posts for you within that year, but each of them were about 500 words, a quick answer, not much content or anything to it. Nowadays, it is the exact opposite. Google wants to see that you have the best resources on your website versus your competitors, and that's how they help you rank. So for instance, if you could actually write 3,000 words, or again, partner with a marketing company to write 3,000 words for you, that page with 3,000 words will get three times more traffic than a blog post that only has 1,000 words to it. So I'm sure we might have heard the phrase content is king, and that is very true. And that's kind of where, in a sense, what we have to do now is work within more of the algorithm. And so by doing that, you want to make everything you put on these pages as resourceful as possible. So if you're writing this yourself, a quick tip, go back to the old days, maybe pull your 5-year-old beside you if you can bear them any longer, and go over the who, what, where, when, and why. So just think about it. If you're talking about your service and you're trying to explain to a 5-year-old, what questions would they ask you if they can stay on topic? So that's kind of a good way to think about all the different types of things you can come in with. So name your service. Who do you serve? Where do you serve? Why do you do how you do it? Things like that nature. This kind of help you create more content about what you're writing. Because, and as well, if you can actually answer all these questions, the other thing you want to do is make sure you use words that your receptionist is hearing people call and say at the same time. So an example of what I mean by this is, I was introduced as the girl who knows what SEO is. Now, I'm sure there is one person on this meeting today who did not know what SEO was or what it stood for. So I would call SEO a technical word, technical jargon. So we all have those different technical jargon words in our industry. And when you're writing, you want to use those because some people actually do know what they are and they're looking for an expert that mentions that they do SEO services. But I'm also going to put in different words that other people describe what I do as. So for instance, I've heard just the terms like Google rankings or optimization, website optimization. So there's all these different variations of what people call what I do. So when I write these articles, I make sure to include all these different variations of what it's called, because at the end of the day, Google can see that text you have on your page and see that you're mentioning these keywords that people are typing in. And so that's kind of the premise of how SEO works. So at the end of the day, you want to write as much as possible, but you really want to make sure you are answering the question at the same time. So for instance, when we write content for our clients, we're obviously optimizing and put all of the clues that Google's asking for us to have in these articles. But at the same time, you need to look over the content and make sure, if you did not know anything about your business, would this content close you or make you push the back button and go to a competitor's website? Those are the other halves of it. So in a sense, you want to make sure you're answering those questions, because your content is what shows that you know what you're talking about. We all say we're experts in our field, but make sure your website actually encompasses the fact that you are an expert in your field. And by doing that, that just means you create more content on your website that shows all of that. So just to go back to my previous point, all of your services or all of your products should have that individual page. And if you are a retailer, obviously, if you have 1,000 products, I don't mean that you have to write content in SEO for every single product, but categorize it. So maybe as far as the point Allison made, she had a scarf portion of it. So maybe she doesn't name every single type of scarf because she has other types of clothing. But for her scarves page, she would actually optimize that as a product page and do SEO for it. So you can do that with products and you can do it with services. So at the end of the day, when you actually have all of your products and services listed out and very easily to see for your clients, then now you can, I'm sorry to say it, write more content. So after you have those pages, yes, the term blogging has gotten popular and popular, but really all blogging is that you're finding different questions people are asking on the internet and you're writing the answer to it. So for example, if you want to take my business, a lot of people ask a lot of crazy, weird questions on Google, and that's a great opportunity for us. So what I do is, if I answer the phone and someone says, hey, so how long does a website take to build? Well, you know what? I've had this question quite a few times. And now that I'm going back on Google, I'm seeing that a lot of people are typing this in because they're curious to know, what's the time frame for a website? What's the average? So maybe I should make a blog post that actually talks about it. And so what we do from there is we do the keyword research, see like, yeah, that people are asking about it. I'm getting a lot of clients ask about it, which is another verification technique. Ask your receptionist, if they could have a little notepad beside the phone, write down the questions when someone calls and write it down. And so every time someone calls new and asks the same question, all they got to do is put a little tally mark beside it. When you see that you have a few questions that everybody asks day in, day out, well, you probably should answer this on your website, because people are, if they're calling and asking you it, they're also Googling and searching it, because I'm sure you've been the same place where you just didn't want to ask anybody for the answer. You wanted to be independent and just find it on Google. And so people do that. They want to know as much as they can before they talk to a potential business, just to safeguard themselves. So when it comes down to that, if they actually type in that question and find your blog post about it and you answered it, well, now A, they know about you. B, they think you're an expert because they've read everything you have to say. And C, they're on your website, which your website, the whole point of it is to tell them to take action. Maybe that's to schedule a free estimate or to go ahead, call and book something. Whatever that call to action is, because they're on your website now, you can allow for them to have more actions. And in a sense, at the end of the day, it's more traffic into the website. So if we know that we can increase the traffic of people coming into the website, we're probably also going to increase the number of people who find what they're looking for and call you to schedule. So it's kind of the biggest thing I did want to talk to you all about is you can do this portion on your own. Obviously, you can find someone else expert with it, but it's all just about, even if you're working with someone right now, go look at those pages. How much content's on them? Do you answer questions in that content, or is it completely so technical that none of us might be able to, from the outside, understand what you're trying to accomplish with it? And also make sure, hey, try to make a regular commitment of, I'm going to write one new blog post a month or one a quarter, whatever works for you, but try to have some type of method like that. So when your receptionist has her list and she says, hey, this question was asked 50 times, this one 40, this one 35. You can take that list and you say, okay, all right, this post January, this post February, this post March. You can easily kind of have some type of systematic process like that. So therefore you can think of new ideas without having to do any work. And now you just have to write it to answer the question. And since you're an expert in your field, just write it down and think about it. If you had to explain it to your kid, how to make sure I answer all the questions for them, because when you answer those questions, that's where Google, again, sees these clues that relates what you are talking about to these keyword searches that people are putting on there. So the biggest thing I can say is try to do this consistently. So if it does mean, hey, I can't do this more than once a quarter, that's fine. Even my company, we're kind of like the shoe cobbler's kids at times. So I do understand that things do get put in the back burner, but try to make at least some small commitment of that to make sure it does move on with it. A note about websites. So this is a little bit how to optimize your website, but I do want to talk quickly about websites in general. So my only thing I would like to make sure everyone understands from today is make sure that you own your website. That is kind of the thing I'm known for, is all I talk about is ownership of this. We don't want to be renters of our websites. We all want to own a home. We all want to own a website. And that's what it kind of comes down to at the end of the day. So if you have a website that's built on Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy, Shopify, different places like that, you're paying them to host it, doesn't mean you own it. So what this means is if any of these places were no longer giving you the customer service you were looking for, maybe their page speed was starting to slow down, so your website was loading slower, and now you take 5 minutes to see the next product page. If you decide to move, you have to rebuild your website basically from scratch somewhere else. So it is one thing I like to tell anybody is if you're going to put money into optimizing your website, make sure that you own this website, because that will help you the most at the end of the day, that basically everything you do marketing wise is built on your own entity. So even as far as Robert's going to talk about podcasts, there's obviously a lot of platforms you can host this on, but there's no reason why you couldn't have these also on your own website. So they can go out to these other places to listen or watch to them, but your website is the hub that they come to see as much as they want about it. So that is kind of a good thing as far as all the marketing elements, you can really kind of make these go together. The last two things are, please, 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 make sure your website's mobile friendly. We are now in 2021, which it feels like, 1999 was 10 years ago. It wasn't, sadly. We're over 21 years away from that. So that used to be the thing then, is you could zoom in, it was kind of hard to see everything, but now there's no excuse. Every website today has to be mobile friendly, and you will not rank on Google if you're not mobile friendly. It was a mobile update that happened years ago, and it is every day taking over websites that have refused to make that change over to mobile friendly. So again, if you don't want to squint, neither do your clients. So don't make them do that, because your competitor isn't making them squint, and that's who they're going to check out and book through. And the very last thing as far as websites is make sure they are loading quickly. So if at any point you are getting impatient waiting on a website to load, then it is too slow. And a lot of times anything over 2 seconds for anybody is way too long. If you're in the field as I am, anything over a 0.02 is way too long for me, just because we're used to making sure the websites go fast. But just think about it. If you were your own customer, go to your website. How quickly does it load? If it takes a while, and you're getting frustrated, then your client has already gotten frustrated probably 3 pages prior, because they don't know you as well as you do. So they don't have the investment in hoping your websites works as well as you do. So it's kind of the biggest thing as far as those websites, is just make sure you own it, make sure it's easy to read for your clients, and make sure that it loads as quickly as possible. So therefore you can get the biggest bang out of your buck when you send people and get that traffic to your website. So there is obviously other things you can do on your website to make sure that you rank higher. And there's also things you can do off of your website to help get more business coming in. So the biggest things as far as when it comes to off page is really the local maps. So I'm sure all of us have done a search on Google, and if someone hasn't, I'm gladly explain. If you type in any type of service, let's go back to HVAC repair, you'll see ads, you'll see a map section, and then you'll see the rest of the organic results. Now, you actually can hire people to get you in the map section. So that's something we specialize in as well, but you can do these things too. So you want to show up in that map section, because let's just say there's a lot of people in the spectrum in the world nowadays. There are people who need an answer immediately and just need to talk to someone and get something booked. And then there's those that want to do their research. They want to check out your website. They actually want to read your about page. They want to get to know you before you come into their home to do anything. So everything you do on your website helps that person. But the first person I talked about who just needs help, and a lot of times this relates mainly to my local trade businesses. They have emergency services. So yes, like HVAC repair, roofing, things like that, where something's broken, you need it fixed immediately. Google My Business is going to be one of the key players for you. So a good example of this is our clients who are contractor type of businesses in the home trade services get between 60 to 75% of their leads through their Google My Business listing. Now, you can rank this, but the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure you've done the things I talked about above. Your website needs to have SEO on it for your maps listing to rank well. Obviously, everybody can go out right now and claim their Google My Business listing and you can see it pop up. But at the end of the day, there's going to be competitors above you that are going to be closer to a prospect, and that is a factor. How close your actual listing is to the person searching for it, how well optimized your website is number two. So if you're not close to that person, but you have a great optimized website, well, you can reach that person. So it's kind of in a sense, if you see your competitors are showing up in your neighborhood, but your business is sitting right on top of it, all that means is most likely their website has a lot better features and SEO and optimization to it completely. So therefore they outrank you even being further away than you are right at that moment sitting on top of your competition. So for anybody who is not familiar with the Google My Business marketing type of strategy, go today, claim your listing, type it in your business, type it in your address. If you go into Google Maps, the first thing they ask is, are we missing an address? They want you to help them fix and make sure this is up to date as soon as possible. So claim your listing. The other reason you want to claim it and verify it is because it will actually create a login for you. So that way, crazy enough, there have been stories where competitors have actually changed other competitors' business hours on their Google My Business page and have unfortunately bankrupt some companies because they might have been a big weekend business and then they said they were closed on the weekends, and so people stopped calling them, and it just was a snowball effect for these businesses. So not that everybody in the world is awful, but just protect your assets. That's all we ask about for here is claim it, and that way you can verify and you can be the person that actually says when things open, when things close, and how to contact us. So again, that number two is optimizing your website with what we talked about previous. Step three of this, and the final step that I would say is the biggest one to kind of finish up with here, is you want to get as many reviews as you can for your Google My Business page. So at the end of the day, we all know that reviews online or kind of the word of mouth of 2020, you know, we weren't allowed to just kind of ask our neighbors what was going on. We didn't do anything. So we all went straight to Google and saw our best friends who are anonymous typing into Google My Business their positive and negative reviews for a business. So you do need to make sure you claim it so that way you can actually respond to these reviews. There's many ways and there's many strategies to kind of talk about review management, but in the day, just make a consistent pattern. So if you can, ask 10 clients each week and try to get one to actually leave that review for your business. If you can make a game plan of one review a week, then that is probably one of the most optimal ways to do this and completely kind of get those together. So that is the three things I really want to talk about is how to optimize your website, how to optimize off your website, and some big keys about your website. And if you need any help with this, we do offer a free 30-minute strategy. I will post my information into the chat box. So if you would like to schedule it, you can book a time on my calendar. I do a complete website audit and I do a complete SEO audit for you. So during that 30 minutes, I tell you what I've seen, whether you've done SEO or not done SEO. So I just kind of give you some education. Please feel free to use me for free. That's what I'm here for, is to help educate you all as much as possible. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone wants to comment to my email information in the comments. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Brittany. And we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A as well for you guys that are still on the call. So I guess now what we'll go ahead and do is pass it along to Robert Johnstone with Wayne Media Group, who's going to talk a little bit about podcasting and how it can be an effective way to market your business.
Awesome. Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. We can't see you though. I know you.
Don't worry.
You were testing.
I got it. There we go. I'm trying out this new beta feature that Zoom just introduced not too long ago. So first off, Allison and Brittany, thank you for speaking. I'm gonna be playing off some of the stuff that you mentioned too tonight because it was so excellent. You know, I'm Brittany, what she was saying about owning your website, and then especially the importance of Google My Business today. It's owned by Google. Think about that for search engine optimization. Google wants you to use their platforms. So Google My Business was an excellent thing to bring up. Thanks, Brittany, for that. So I'm going to be talking about a newer platform that you might not think traditionally for small business, which is podcasting. And we'll go into the details of that here in just a second. Let me work these slides. So why start podcasting? I'll take a little drink real quick. Here's kind of the stuff we're going to be covering throughout my presentation. We'll be quick about it. Podcasting will save you time and it will save you cost. And you're probably a little bit curious about that time. I'm going to be talking on a microphone for an hour or two. It's pretty easy once you kind of understand the formula. Podcasting is a content generator of all sorts. If you have any issue with developing engageable content for your small business, podcasting is a great way to kickstart that and get many forms of it through this platform. We're going to get geeky with SEO a little bit, which Brittany gave a great introduction to about how podcasting can help with your web traffic. And then one of the most important factors, if not the most important factor, is how podcasts help you develop relationships with your audience, your peers, your strategic partners, and then on top of that too, the people who influence you as well. So going on to the time and money part, one of the main things I like to talk about with podcasting, especially if I have some people on who are used to the days of broadcast television, radio, everything like that, there are no gatekeepers to it. Nobody is stopping you from getting on, a microphone, recording yourself and what you're talking about with your business, and then distributing that as a marketing tool. Nobody's going to come up to you and say, hey, you don't have enough experience. You don't have a broadcasting degree. You're not a celebrity. Maybe we'll give you a shot, but we didn't like how your pilot episode performed. Therefore, you're not going on the platform. We're going to take all your money. It's just not the case. So it's kind of open reign with that. There is no gatekeepers and it's free to start. It's simple. You get on there, you record an episode. Then you can take care of the rest because it has a quick turnaround time. It's pretty easy to cut, edit, and distribute a podcast. On top of that too, just the cost saving side of things compared to traditional media sources, and then even paid advertising across various digital platforms now, which cost is going up. Cost is going up on that kind of stuff. So with a podcast, you can get your own message out there, has a lot of shareability, and you're not taking on the cost that traditional advertising would have to give you a much smaller segment. So content generation. I'm not going to go through these steps. Go ahead and read them as I'm going along, how this kind of works. But the main thing to focus on here is you think about it. You have a 30-minute conversation about something that you know, something within your business, something that you're good at. And if you're owning that business, you inevitably do. You're doing well with it. And this is, a good way to show that off, to show that you're an expert. But within those shows, when you listen to them afterwards, or you take notes on them, or you have your support staff, or if you have a marketing team like myself or somebody else, then they're going to be able to clip tons and tons of content out of that. And whether that be video clips, social media clips, breaking down the audio, there's a ton of different ways that you can take one episode and turn it into content. And I have a little kind of diagram to show you that. So out of a 15-minute podcast episode, you're talking for 15 minutes, you bring up good 5 topic points. Let's say you record video with it too, or you at least put engaging images within a video. Now all of a sudden you have a good video, clips for social, a full YouTube video. You got the recap. You can do blog writing out of the transcripts of podcast posts. Those blogs are going to be SEO optimized, just as Brittany was talking about. The audio is going to make great audiograms, quote from the images, insights and takeaways, and the list goes on and on and on for how much content you can develop for your social media strategies utilizing podcasting as a platform. So we're going to hit briefly on this because Brittany mentioned, everything she said was so good. But yes, podcasting is great because it's another platform that you can go on. She mentioned briefly with keyword targeting. Since you can get transcriptions with your podcast, on top of that, being able to create show notes, small blogs based on it, footnotes within many, many different platforms that you can distribute your podcast on, whether that be YouTube, your website, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, sharing it on other people's website if it's relevant to their message. Those are all good ways to start building up the SEO and target traffic towards your brand and towards your business. The backlinks alone are powerful. Shareability on those many different websites we were talking about. Taking your transcriptions, cleaning them up, indexing them for keywords, turning them to blogs, talking about those niche topics. Those are very, very important when it comes to SEO, because you might, when it comes to building a website from this ground up, especially if you're in a competitive business where other people have been in that realm for a long time, it's going to take a while before you can climb up ahead of them for some of the main listed keywords, like roofing in Louisville, for example, is a hard one. But if you're talking about those other topics involved around it, and people are actually searching on Google for those topics, and you've talked about them on your podcast, you're going to ultimately be able to share that content on your website too, and increase your search engine optimization, all in all to increase web traffic to your brand. So how do I get started? That's the important thing. I just told you a lot of the good benefits, but you want to start a podcast, right? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to get on the equipment on the mic, but it doesn't mean you can't be organized and you can't, go at it wild, especially if you have something you're trying to accomplish with it. So you have to plan, come up with a concept, a format, a hosting style, consistent hosting for your show. Have goals for that and kind of make sure that you know where you would like your target audience to be. It's going to shift. It might shift a little bit to the left, the right, but there's going to be some shifts, and then you have to adapt for that. It's great. If you want to start a podcast, start writing down episode notes right now. What are you going to be talking about? Because you have to stay consistent to do it. So you need to make sure that you have those topics and those guests already planned out. Make sure that if you have a team that you're working out those roles and responsibilities, and come up with a consistent schedule. If you're trying to podcast and you're only releasing every few months, just like a TV show, people don't want to watch a TV show if it's only coming out at a random time and they don't even know about it. The best way you can do is schedule. Equipment. You got to ask yourself, what can you afford at this time? You can do a podcast directly on your phone if you want. If you want great volume, you start getting up to more equipment, and that might come down the road. You might come up to some of the more professional equipment like what we have at the studio, and more professional soundboards and tools that you can use to really make the podcast even better. A quiet, soundproof space is very important. So you got to make sure that you know your surroundings. One of the easiest things you can do is put a blanket over the door in a small area and kind of put a bunch of stuff in the room that you're podcasting in to kind of deflect that sound so you don't have an echo. If you want your podcast to be a success, you have to market it. You have to market it. Just putting it up on the platforms and being like, well, I hope there's the best, and putting a post every single time it comes up on your social media page that not a lot of people are following, you're not going to get the results that you want. It's a slow game, but if you don't have a marketing plan around your podcast for content, when you're going to be pushing everything out, and then making sure that your audience is sharing, and engaging and asking questions and getting more audience members for you along with your guest, you're not going to move anywhere with it. And the most important thing with podcasting today is to stay consistent. All right. It's an investment in your time. It's going to take a while. Typically what we see with our clients is I tell them every single time, even so, especially if you haven't been doing this and you're developing those skills, you're not going to be an expert right away. And you're going to look back at episode 1 and you're going to be like, what was I doing? Like, what am I even talking about? I don't even sound like that person anymore. And at that point, it's a good time to maybe re-record episode 1. But you have to develop your skills. You have to develop your message. And if you keep at it, the ROI is it's going to start making its way towards you, and those connections are going to be had, and you're going to start getting more referrals, and people are going to call you out within your industry, and they're going to want to know your secret. So the super secret right down here at the bottom is just keep recording. So once again, I'm Robert Johnstone. I'm with the Speakeasy Podcast Network and the Wayne Media Group. You can visit us online at speakeasynetwork.com or waynemedia.com. We're right over off of Blankenbaker and 64 with our studio. If you are interested in podcasting or anything else, get a hold of me. All my information is on that card below. I'll also put that inside the group chat too. So Raphael, Allison, Brittany, thanks so much for having me here tonight. It was great hearing from every single one of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate those insights. So What we thought we'd do at the end, I know we're a little bit over, but if you guys have any questions in particular, feel free to share them. You can either unmute your mic or you can pop them in the chat box. I'm also going to check on Facebook Live to see if there are any questions there. So feel free to chime away if you guys have any questions in particular.
Can I ask Brittany a question real quick?
Of course, yeah.
So one of my ventures is a retail site, and I sell nationally, and I market on Facebook all across the country. And I have small collections of things that is growing. So it would get not scalable to have a page for each product. And I do have collections and stuff, but is there any value in having pages that aren't backlinked or connected through the navigation, or no?
So you're saying the extra product pages might not be linked throughout all the website, or just some other random pages you're thinking of?
Both.
So when it comes back to that, you really do kind of want to have, it's just called an internal linking structure. But yes, ideally you want all the pages to somehow talk to one another. And by that, it is kind of linking them somehow. You can, if it's something you want to hide, you don't have to by any means. But if it's pages that you want to rank and show up, then yes, they need to obviously link throughout the website, because in an instance of it, the power other pages might have can help the power of the other page. So there's like the power of the website in total, but then page power. So that's kind of where like your individual collections, that page has its own power. So if they just type in that collection that they're looking for, they could find that versus your home page, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There's different strategies for them. And honestly, I'd be happy to do a free strategy session with you to determine what might be a great method for you. But ideally, yes, almost everybody should make sure a majority of their page is linked to another page somehow that's relevant. So don't just make them link to link.
Right.
Some relevancy where they kind of work together.
I'll probably schedule with you. I'm starting like just this week to see some ad fatigue. So.
Yep. Love to talk to you then. Good question.
That's awesome. Yeah, I guess I have a quick strategy that I've been using recently that I thought was pretty helpful, was for creating, like you were saying, Brittany, where you answer questions for people. You can record yourself answering the question and then go to somewhere like rev.com and just have it transcribed. And rev.com, just you pay per minute, and it'll transcribe it for you. And then all you have to do is just edit the blog post. So I don't know if I'm assuming you do a lot of that.
Yeah, and honestly, as much as what Robert talked about, the biggest thing I loved about it is, yes, exactly what you said. You can, probably the easiest time save that he mentioned as well is just recording yourself talking about it, answering it. Now you can transcribe that, you add that to your website. It's a blog post. You can go through and optimize it. But yes, because that way as well, it's different methods of it. So just like Robert said, like now you have video and you have an audio version of it. You can put that on your site, but also you can put that on other platforms and then optimize that video on those platforms. So if you do add it to YouTube, you would want to make sure you fill out the description as complete as possible, and you can still use methods within that. So you want to put those keywords in that description as well, because YouTube's just another search engine. I mean, it's just the visual video form of Google, if you think about it that way.
YouTube is owned by Google on top of that too. So they definitely, it's just like Google My Business. Like the reason Google My Business is so powerful and so important with your marketing strategy is that it's owned by Google, and Google owns the search engine optimization factor. You know, of course there's traffic on DuckDuckGo and Bing, but it's not nearly as much, as not even measurable to Google. So if you want to have your SEO increased, you have to play Google's game, and you have to use the platforms that they want to use. You know, and even posting is a good thing on Google My Business now too, to treat that like a social media platform and post content to it. You know, there's a number of different unique ways you can do it. You can geotag it to your locations. Yeah, I love Google My Business. I'm so happy you brought that up, Brittany, because it's what they say. It's as important as your website today, right?
Yeah, and a question I am getting frequently right now, just because there's a lot of things changing in the landscape politically. Still, you want to put your eggs in the basket of Google. So I have a few people asking me to optimize for DuckDuckGo or Beta or any of these other ones. At the end of the day, it's still 95+% is staying on Google. So you want to put your time there, because that's where a majority of people are at the end of the day as well.
Awesome. Cool. I guess we'll give it one more minute if anyone else has any other questions. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right. All right. Well, thank you all for attending tonight. Like I said, this is our second meeting for the Louisville Small Business Summit, so we're really excited to continue to engage with entrepreneurs here locally and really abroad, since we are live as well on online. But this will be recorded. It has been recorded and it will be posted on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to come back to it later on and check it out, feel free to do so. And again, thanks Brittany, thanks Allison, and thanks Rob for providing some awesome insights. I know a lot of people got a lot out of it. So
thanks for having us.
Definitely.